place where over 1 in 3 children live below the poverty line, and the streets echo with the highest murder rate of any major American city. This isn't dystopian fiction, it's Memphis, Tennessee, right now. The city is bleeding residents faster than any county in the nation. How exactly did the crown jewel of the Mid-South become America's most dangerous tipping point? The Exodus, America's fastest shrinking county. Memphis is currently hemorrhaging its most valuable and irreplaceable resource, its people. The city is losing its tax base at a staggering rate, leaving behind a hollowed-out urban core and a community of ghosts. This isn't just a slow leak or a seasonal shift in demographics, it is a full-blown death spiral. As working-class families, young professionals and legacy residents flee for safety and stability, local tax revenues absolutely plummet. This creates an immediate and devastating ripple effect across the entire municipal structure. Plummeting revenues lead directly to drastically underfunded public schools, significantly fewer police officers patrolling the streets, and a rapidly decaying infrastructure that the city simply cannot afford to maintain. The residents left behind are trapped in a metropolis that can no longer afford to take care of them, which only accelerates the widespread panic to leave. The data behind this exodus is truly catastrophic. In 2024, Shelby County recorded the largest numeric population decrease of any county in the entire United States, losing nearly 5,400 people in a single 12-month window. Fast forward to the 2024-2025 census data, and that bleeding accelerated, with the county losing an additional 8,200 residents, driven heavily by over 17,000 individuals fleeing via domestic migration. Between 2010 and 2024 alone, Memphis lost nearly 56,000 residents. These are not people moving away for lucrative coastal tech hubs. They are packing up and fleeing just a few miles across county and state lines to Mississippi and the surrounding Nashville suburbs, desperately trying to escape the Memphis city limits. The future projection for this historic American city is grim. The University of Tennessee's demographic analysts project a continuous, unbroken population decline for Shelby County straight through to the year 2070. Within the next 10 to 15 years, Memphis risks dropping well below 550,000 residents. If this threshold is breached, entire neighborhoods will become functionally abandoned, forcing the city into an inevitable municipal bankruptcy as it attempts to maintain a sprawling geographical footprint with a fraction of the necessary taxpayers. Reversing this diaspora will require aggressive, unprecedented state-level economic interventions. Memphis must implement targeted property tax freezes for its long-term residents to incentivize staying while desperately securing massive federal infrastructure grants to physically rebuild the city's collapsing livability. But to bring families back to the Mid-South, the city has to solve the terrifying reality happening right outside their front doors. People aren't just leaving because of potholes or high taxes. They are running for their lives from a specific terrifying threat that shattered national records in 2024. Daily life in Memphis has transitioned into an active survival scenario. A wave of systemic violent crime has turned everyday civilian life into a landscape of constant risk. The statistics reflect a city under siege. In 2023, homicides hit a catastrophic high of 351 dead. By 2024, Memphis recorded the highest murder rate among all of America's largest cities, surpassing even Baltimore. In 2025, the Memphis Police Department pushed back. This chart shows the result. A historic 26% drop in homicides, bringing the annual count down to 184. Even with these gains, the baseline violence remains so severe that President Trump placed Memphis on a shortlist for direct federal intervention. The city has become a landscape of federal task forces and DEA operations just to maintain a fragile peace. These policing successes exist in a vacuum. To understand why experts still project a brutal relapse, we have to look past the street corner and into the economic foundation of the neighborhoods themselves. The true engine of this collapse is a generational poverty epidemic. It creates a self-fulfilling loop where extreme deprivation breeds extreme desperation, and you cannot arrest your way out of starvation. Memphis currently suffers from an overall poverty rate of 22.6% and 27.1% for the local black community. The human cost is visible here. A staggering 36.3% of children live below the poverty line, ranking second among large American cities. When a child goes to sleep hungry, education takes a back seat to basic survival. This level of deprivation ensures a future generation entering adulthood with severe educational deficits and crippling trauma. Poverty is an active aggressive fuel. It creates an environment where carrying a weapon feels like the only logical choice for survival, meaning starvation is what actually pulls the trigger. This doom loop begins with deprivation. Young people with no prospects are recruited into local gangs. This recruitment directly fuels endless retaliatory street violence, plunging the community into permanent trauma. The violence then poisons economic growth. As bullets fly, small businesses permanently close their doors and corporate investors pull their funding, as seen in the boarded-up remains of local commerce. This flight of capital deepens the initial poverty. The safety net snaps and the city is locked into a cycle where the lack of opportunity feeds the very crime that prevents opportunity from returning. As long as this loop remains intact, Memphis will remain a militarized zone reliant on emergency federal funding just to keep the homicide rate out of the 300s. If this trajectory continues for another 20 years, the city faces a brutal future. A child poverty rate near 40% guarantees a workforce entirely unequipped for the technical jobs of the 2030s and 2040s. The result is a massive spike in welfare dependency and an unhoused crisis that is already beginning to spill out of control. The city is essentially starving its own future. Mass arrests treat the symptoms, but breaking the loop demands direct, aggressive economic intervention. This requires systemic reform, universal pre-K to provide safe environments, guaranteed income pilots for single mothers, and corporate tax incentives strictly designed to bring manufacturing jobs into the most impoverished zip codes. These investments must be combined with youth diversion programs and a return to community policing where officers live in the exact zip codes they patrol. Memphis is at a breaking point. Unless the city reconstructs its economic base to provide a path out of deprivation, the loop will continue, regardless of how many people are behind bars. Look at this line graph tracking the historical baseline of homelessness in the United States. Right here, in 2024, the line abruptly spikes upward by 18%, pushing the national unhoused population past 1 million people in a single year. Down in Memphis, Tennessee, you might assume the city has somehow insulated itself from that national surge. According to local data, an impressive 93.3% of the city's recognized homeless population is sheltered. Add that to another striking statistic. In 2025, homicides in the city dropped to just 184. On paper, this looks like a successful turnaround, a city driving down violence and sheltering its poor. But that shelter metric hides a critical structural weakness. Having over 1,800 sheltered people in Memphis and Shelby County means the emergency infrastructure is operating at absolute maximum capacity. Every available cot is filled, and the system is buckling under the weight of the city's poverty rate. And that drop in homicides, it coincides with Shelby County losing an additional 8,200 residents between 2024 and 2025 alone, the highest population drain of any county in the country. The statistics paint a dangerous illusion. Memphis is becoming statistically safer in the short term, but it is becoming emptier and poorer in the long term. You can lower the crime rate, but the victory is hollow if the tax base vanishes in the process. When that completely maxed out storage system finally turns people away, they hit the streets and the human toll accelerates. Once an individual loses shelter, their life expectancy plummets rapidly. Prolonged exposure to the elements rapidly exacerbates severe mental health conditions and dangerous addiction issues. In a city already struggling with high rates of violent crime, these unhoused residents become highly vulnerable targets. This creates an immediate strain on police resources, pulling officers away from other essential duties to manage a symptom of systemic failure. The longer a person remains unhoused, the harder and more expensive it becomes to successfully reintegrate them into society. Relying entirely on the finite stretched resources of local charities to manage this growing population is a mathematical impossibility. If the continuous influx of evicted residents fractures the current shelter infrastructure, we can project exactly what Memphis will look like in 5 years. You will see sprawling high-density tent encampments flooding the streets, rivaling the worst crises on the West Coast. The immediate emergence of these street camps will paralyze the ongoing efforts to revitalize the downtown core. Visitors will avoid the urban center, drying up the revenues that sustain the local tourism industry. Without that daily foot traffic, the remaining local businesses trying to stay afloat will be forced to shut their doors, leaving empty storefronts and cracked parking lots in their wake. The explosion of visible homelessness acts as a direct catalyst. It pushes away the people and the dollars required to keep the urban economy functioning, accelerating the city's overall decline. This animated flowchart illustrates exactly how a tax-based death spiral works. As fleeing families and bankrupt businesses remove their revenue inputs from the top, the pool of municipal funds rapidly shrinks, leaving the city with a fractured operational budget. As you can see, that shrinking pool of money eventually drops below the threshold required to fund outputs like schools, fire, and police. This forces city leaders to make impossible mathematical choices about which survival services to cut. The public school system is often the first casualty of these severe municipal budget cuts, pushing even more frustrated families to pack up and cross the border into neighboring counties. Next in line are the fire and police departments. Stripped of adequate funding, emergency response times lengthen, and essential equipment maintenance grinds to a halt. Lowering the crime rate on paper today is meaningless if the city crosses a financial event horizon where it can no longer afford to pay officers to protect whoever is left. Over the next decade, Memphis will physically split into two distinct unequal realities. There will be a shrinking, heavily gentrified, and ultra-policed downtown zone built strictly for the wealthy, surrounded on all sides by vast abandoned neighborhoods left to rot and decay. This fractured geography represents the permanent death of Memphis's historical identity and community. To survive this storm, Memphis has to abandon its reliance on temporary charity cots. The city must aggressively adopt permanent housing-first models to stabilize its vulnerable population. That housing shift requires mandatory state-funded mental health and addiction treatment facilities to offload the burden currently crushing local nonprofits. Structurally, city governance needs a radical overhaul. This means merging county and city resources to streamline the budget while securing multi-million-dollar federal urban revitalization grants to rebuild broken infrastructure and schools. Memphis has the historical soul and the grit required to survive, but the mathematical margins for error are gone, and the data conclusively proves the city is entirely out of second chances.